Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you're surfing the web and you're going through different news stories and you happen upon the present one you're reading and you, you read like in the same sentence the words Taylor Swift and football, and you're like, how did I get here? What is this that I'm reading? None of this makes any sense to me, and I want out of here. I don't know why I brought that up. I guess that's just an icebreaker. I've had a lot of those instances recently. It's like the news stories involves Madonna, and you're like, how in the world did I get here? Anyways, this is the Unexpected Cosmology. My name is Noel Joshua Hadley. Shalom. Thank you for coming tonight. Hopefully, you guys can hear me loud and clear. And no, the title of this video is not clickbait. That was one of the questions that was put forward right away. And I just want to encourage everyone. This is going to be this is impromptu. It's kind of casual. What I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to read through my latest newsletter that I put out today. That's the other thing. If you don't subscribe to my newsletter, please do. I put them out about once a month, detailing all the latest news and information and books that we put out and so on and so forth. I'm going to read through that, giving some commentary. You guys will quickly see what I'm getting at. And then afterwards, I kind of just want to go through my own biography, go through my history and talk about my life leading up to this moment and hopefully where I see my future going. Especially for a lot of the new people that have come to my station, my channel and my website and my writings and so on and so forth. Some of you have been with me quite a few years, and so you know me pretty well, but maybe you'll hear something new tonight. So let's see if I can get right to that. Here's the what I'll be reading through. Well, the Unexpected Cosmology. Can't even talk. Hold on, I need more coffee. See, the problem is that I like an hour ago I was really sleepy, and I was like, I can't do this tonight. So I brewed a cup of coffee, and now I'm just like buzzing. I'm like wired, and there's no way I'm going back to sleep tonight. Yeah, shalom, everybody coming in. All right, will the Unexpected Cosmology survive? And there we go, right there. Feed GoFundMe the baby elephant. I named the baby elephant GoFundMe. Yes, I'm actually going there. So here we are. Will the Unexpected Cosmology survive by yours truly, Noel Joshua Hadley, written today, 1/30/2024. Well, it's happening. I've started a GoFundMe account. First time I ever did it, too. All indications have the Hadleys, that would be me, Noel Joshua Hadley, the Hadleys moving to a single family income. Very informative. We were anticipating the change within the next couple of years, but not this soon. So to sum up what I just stated, my wife and I have been talking about being single family income and her not working anymore. It's been the plan for some time, and the plan was hopefully in the next couple years, but not now, not this soon. So as a ministry, the Unexpected Cosmology has little choice but to become the sole financial provider or hang up and retire. So that tells you where this is going tonight. Will the Unexpected Cosmology survive? If it cannot provide, then things are going to drastically change around here. I'll have to go become like a door greeter at Walmart or something like that. This is the most serious I have ever been when I say I need your help. If TUC has blessed you on your journey of discovery and spiritual walk, then I ask that you please consider becoming a financial supporter if you haven't already. And allow me to explain. I have a lot to talk about tonight. During the summer of 2022, we launched the TUC Book Club. It might have been closer to the end of 2022. I'd have to look at the date. But it was for the specific purpose of supporting the financial needs of Rebecca Gould. Now, let me talk a little bit about Rebecca. She came into the ministry, I guess it would have been back in 2021 now. It was summertime 2021. She discovered my work just like a lot of you do, where it was just kind of eat, sleep, poop, read Noel's papers, and she became obsessed about it. She started learning about the Torah. Now, she had heard of Rob Skiba before. She was knowledgeable of his work, but this was the first time when she came in and really like started to see it. Like, oh, like these are the instructions in righteous living. And she became very desirous to learn more about them and keep them. And it came to my attention in well, we were talking in it would have been May or June of 2022, and originally I brought her on to edit books for me, and the idea was I would just pay her per book that she did, and hopefully she doesn't mind me giving this story. Within a few months, I somebody tipped me off that I needed to talk to her, and I call her up, and lo and behold, I find out that she is at the bottom of her barrel financially. She doesn't have a job; she hasn't in years, and has like another month to go before she's done financially. And I said, well, we can't have that. So I brought her on as a full-time employee. I said, hey, how about you show me what you need to, like what you need per month to survive financially, and we're going to make sure to do that. Well, the problem is like I was thinking, how am I going to do that? So we had to come up and put our heads together, and we came up with the TUC Book Club. I think it was my idea, and I said, Rebecca, what if we start putting out one book per month, a new book, and we get people to subscribe to these books, and these books come to their doorstep, they pay for them, and then you make the money off of that. And she's like, okay, let's do that. So we started that off, and like the last several books, guys, that I published, the finances went to support Rebecca. All right. When people, it's hard for me to talk about these things because people have this idea that I've been doing this for free, like turning out paper after paper and research and books week after week after week since January 2017 when I started the website. And it's never been about money. It's always been about putting the information out there. And my desire has been to provide for other people. Now, I've never met Rebecca in real life. I've never been in the same room or same city at the same time, to my knowledge. And yet, she's an employee, and I support her. So it took about a year and a half, a little over a year of doing the book club to pay off, where it wasn't draining my pocket. I wasn't bleeding money to make this work. And we finally got her to where she needs to be. So let's move on. So as I say here, it was a success. Rebecca has proven to be an incredible ministry building partner, providing top-notch work as an editor and bringing numerous texts to modern audiences like the Earth Not a Globe, a review, volumes 1 and 2, which I absolutely adore, among others. She also runs the TUC store. Now, I want to point out here that a lot of people don't know Rebecca or who she is. She might just be some random name out there that they've heard on the internet once in a while, but she has made the Unexpected Cosmology its face. I mean, she has given it visibility, and she does a lot. I mean, she has been an enormous asset to this ministry, so I'm very grateful for her. Up to this point, the TUC Book Club and Store have been utilized to support her needs, as I mentioned. And I want to stress this to everyone, and I already had a phone call with Rebecca today, and we talked through this, and I wanted to ensure her, Rebecca is going to remain with the TUC family. Nothing is going to change on that front. She's going to continue being provided with. And I told her, I said, I'm not jumping ship and leaving you on it, or I'm not throwing you to the curb or anything like that. You and I, we're going to go down on the ship together. Like if this ship goes down, if we have to become grocers, go down to Publix or whatever, become grocers, like we're going to do it together. Fast forward to September of 2023. Now we're going to talk about my wife, Sarah. And if you guys stick with me to the end of the video, as I go through my life story, I'll give the story of how my wife and I met and our development and all that kind of stuff. After finishing her latest contract as a software engineer, and she has worked for herself for many, many years, very, very good software engineer, and she, contracts herself out to different businesses. I personally asked my wife, Sarah, to take 6 months off and consider becoming a full-time mom. Give it a test run, and she agreed. Now, I need to clarify that she and I both work from home, so it's not like either one of us were leaving, but we have a family of 3 now. I have 2 sons and a daughter, And we homeschool them. We're all a family unit at home, so she's working on one side of the house, I'm working on the other. It's not like we're far apart. But I asked her, it was a perfect time. Her contract came to an end, and I said, what if you just consider being a stay-home mom and take these 6 months, think it over, and homeschool the children, that kind of stuff. And up to that point, for the first 4 years of my son's homeschooling, I homeschooled them, and then she took over duties this year for their fourth grade year. And anyways, and now where has the time gone? Meaning the 6 months are almost up. It's been 5 months now. Looks like that 6 months is nearly expired. With that in mind, there is bad news and there is good news. The good news is that Sarah never wants to work for another company again, if it can be helped. She wants to devote her full-time talents to our children and a TUC partnership, thereby expanding the vision of this ministry in groundbreaking new ways. Now, what I mean by that is that, she can finally go to work for TUC for me, and she could, as a software engineer, she could sit there with me and we could work side by side and help expand this ministry, which never happened before. Now, the bad news is that her contract is not being renewed. And actually, interesting enough, right before I turned on this video, like 20 minutes before, we found out even more so, like it's not being renewed. Therefore, the road signs all seem to be pointing towards the inevitable. We feel that Yahuwah wants us to take this next step in our life journey, meaning it's kind of like, it looks like she's not going back to work, and we were really hoping she would go back to work, get a contract for one more year. I'll explain in a second. So with Sarah at the helm, being the brilliant problem solver that she is, we believe we can implement practical ways of covering our family's financial needs via this ministry. We believe we can get her to come in to the Unexpected Cosmology, which is a small-time publishing company struggling, but we're coming out with some great titles, and she's going to really help with that firsthand. But starting out, we need your help. We need ministry supporters, and many of you have been supporting us for the last year. I really appreciate everybody who's been subscribing to the Unexpected Cosmology, not including the financial support already going towards Rebecca. So we already have a huge chunk of really almost everything at this point going towards Rebecca. Our hope is to get us at a place where we can bring in, I'm going to say it, $8,000 per month. We can float financially at $5,000, though at present that will eat into our savings. And of course, the last several months have all been based upon the floating principle. I mean, we've been just eating on our savings. To give you an overview of our expenses, it's actually not all that grim. We have one automobile, a 2002 Ford F-350. It's diesel. It's paid off. We own an RV. You can see I'm sitting in it right now. It's a fifth wheel. It's paid off. So that's good. No debts there. What isn't paid off is our mortgage. That's the one debt we have left. We have a mortgage. We live in a 3-bedroom house on the East Coast, just outside of Charleston, South Carolina, which we're about to return to in about, we'll be there next Monday. I can't wait. Had Sarah's contract been renewed, we would have likely had the house paid off by April this year. Yeah, bummer. In 2 or 3 months time from now. Like, that's how close we were. But that no longer appears to be the plan. So that was the plan, that she would take one more year's contract and we would get that paid off, and then we would be freed up financially to be single income based on the Unexpected Cosmology. Now, once the house is paid off, we can bring our monthly family budget drastically down to $5,000 a month, and I think we could even lower it more than that, but you guys know how it is with inflation nowadays, and everything is so unpredictable. We are also hoping for another year's contract because let me take that back. We were also hoping for another year's contract because the house does need a lot of work. You know how that goes. It has an original kitchen. We were going to remodel all that stuff. That's out the window now. Though again, that no longer appears to be the plan. So here's where some of you are going to really roll your eyes, and I can see this all over the comment section on the in internet chat rooms tomorrow morning. The current fundraiser, which I'm going to show you, has an aim of $15,000, providing a maximum of 3 months income. Now that's going to take us up to the summer. All right, that's going to help as the unexpected cosmology last up to the beginning of the summer. No, it is not a long-term solution. A long-term solution will come through product sales, books as a small-time publishing company, and Patreon supporters, which I ask that you also consider. I was very pleased to see that today we had like several new sign-ups in Patreon, and those are listed below every video, just so you know. It will, however, give us a head start, amping up the production at TUC. You guys, Rebecca does a lot, and I'm so glad for my buddy Dave and other people like Michael and Crazy Chicken Boy and Pamela and other people who are part of the team who do so much and so on and so forth. But from my end, if you understand, I'm just one guy, right, trying to hold all this together and put out these weekly Torah portions and studies and research, and I got to run the book publishing company and work with the authors, and it's a lot. So let me say that again. It will, however, give us a head start, amping up the production at TUC. In a moment, I will let you in on some of our ministry goals. Asking for assistance is something which I clearly do not enjoy. Guys, I do not like talking about money. I cannot stand it. I have maintained the unexpected cosmology for years on the mere desire to promote a deeper understanding of the world which Yahuwah, as I call him now, is king over, and in doing so, encouraging Bible believers to take steps of obedience towards his instructions in righteous living. So those are the two goals I have. One is that I want to affirm the reality of the Bible to the world through the pursuit of truth. And the second is that I want to take Bible believers and encourage them to take that next step in their relationship with Yahuwah. You can say Yahuwah, Yahweh, or you could say even Yeshua, right? I want to encourage them to take that next step of obedience. Say, look, you're already in a relationship. You believe in him. Now let's go further. Let's go deeper into this and follow his commands. But then with everything I have just stated, it is now or perhaps never. It's now or never. Trusting in the provisions of Yahuwah has never been more imperative. And I am fully, I don't have any doubts that Yahuwah has full control over the situation, none whatsoever. But this could be one of those situations where he, closes the door to the unexpected cosmology. Said, okay, you've done what you were supposed to do. We're closing shop. You're going to do something else now, or he could just expand this in magnificent ways and just really take this ministry to new levels. I don't know which. I'm okay with whatever Yah's will is. But my wife and I are at the point because of the sheer amount of time this takes me, week after week after week, and how draining it is. We both have agreed that with our family, we can't have two working parents anymore. Like, it needs to be one focused on the family, the house, the children, and the other working. So, like I said, if this doesn't bring it in, then I'll be going elsewhere to make ends meet. And I hope that's not the case. I hope that I would like to be around for many, many years. I'd like to be around for decades. I'd like to be here, 2030, see what happens on the other end. I'd like to be here at 2050, if everything is still ticking, if the clock is still ticking. I'd like to be here and pursuing truth with you guys and reading from scripture and having Bible studies and all that kind of stuff. Moving forward, my goal at TUC is to focus upon providing more resource information for the foundations of spiritual growth. I love discovering new layers of truth and then telling others about them. But all the same, as a missionary to fellow truth seekers, and that's what I am. I'm not trying to butter you up or anything. I'm a missionary. That's what I am. I've been there for years. As a missionary to fellow truth seekers, it is important to ensure various levels of development are being cultivated. So what I mean by this is that I'm a very kind of meaty guy, kind of very stoic. I don't get really too emotional. I'm one of those guys. Just show me the facts, show me the truth, right? I'm not going to I'm not going to determine what the truth is based on how it makes me feel. And I hope not. I hope I don't. Maybe I do, but I don't think I do. I think that it, one of my negative points is that, and I was talking to Rebecca about this today, and she was in agreement. Is that I'm a very intellectual guy, and so I think that that's a deterrent for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people out there that they just need more of the bare bones stuff, and so they kind of listen to the things. One of the things I hear all the time is people say, "Oh, I need to watch your video 2 or 3 times to understand what you're talking about." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Because I try to take these complex ideas and try to kind of funnel them down into something that hopefully the crowd can understand, and it feels like I'm not always doing that. Um, and so I think a lot of people just kind of move on, like, I can't, this is too much for me. This is just, and then people start calling me names and stuff. And it's more projecting based on, maybe their lack of their inability to understand things or whatever. I don't know. But what people need is that they need to see that, as a shepherd, that the shepherd is going to lead them towards green pastures and, waters, right? They're going to get nourishment for their soul. They're going to get development in their spirit. And any true teacher, a true teacher is somebody who doesn't hold someone's hand, but actually points the way and shows them this is how you walk the path, right? And kind of leads them off on the path. And so what I'm saying is that I recognize that there are multiple different types of people coming into this ministry. And one of the big complaints I was getting from people is that, like, no, like, you're covering all this amazing stuff. We love it. But can you just do some back to basic stuff, And this is why I started up the Torah portion. And so we started that in September, and I'm dedicated this year, and I want to do it again next year. I love the Torah portions and to go through this. So as people are coming into the ministry, they're discovering mudflood stuff, Tartaria stuff, all that good stuff, the reptilians, whatever. They're coming into this, and then they're saying, what is this Torah stuff, right? And they're seeing this week after week after week, and that's the missional aspect, and showing people that let's take you back to the basics and show you what the Bible is actually about. What are the foundations of Scripture, and show you how you too can live a set apart life for Yahuwah. How you can pursue righteousness, right? All right. So, and I say in the next sentence, look at that. One of the ways this is being accomplished are through my weekly Torah portion studies on the eve of Shabbat. Some of you will appreciate that I put the eve of Shabbat. These serve as an introduction to the instructions for many individuals who are pouring into TUC through our alternative avenues of biblical truth research. So, and I think I just explained that. Now, already the website is stocked with rarely read extra biblical books. I have put dozens that I have personally edited, that I've gone through and I put up in terms of for resources. A lot of people don't know that they're there, all of which have been personally edited, and many are offered in physical book form. To give you an example of 2 upcoming endeavors that I plan in the very near future, I aim to lead a study on Paul's letter to the Galatians according to the Torah. Yes, I'm going to do it, which is a behemoth hurdle for most to overcome. When most people when they bring out the objection, but Paul, usually what they're talking about is Galatians. I mean, really, like, that is something that people are like, but Noel, haven't you read Galatians? You know what I'm saying? And so my goal is, I'm already in the early stages now preparing this. It's going to be in both written form, a paper for people, for people to get out there on the internet, but also it'll be something I'm going to discuss, just like we're doing now, as a study, and just show, like, even for the anti-Paul crowd out there, it's a growing movement. However they might villainize him in any number of ways, to actually show that, like, the context of Galatians, like, what's really going on there, and it's one of those shocking things, and you're like, oh, he was defending the Torah. He was actually very pro-Torah in Galatians. That one is already in its early stages. I can't wait to present that. We're looking several weeks away, but just letting you know. Another aim is to produce weekly Torah portions, notes in book form for small group or personal studies. And so we're right now in Exodus, and what follows Exodus is Leviticus. So I think I'm going to start on Leviticus first, so it's ready to go in about 6 weeks. Next week, that's my goal, to start working on that. I'm going to so what I want to do is have it could be printable, like printouts people have, but it'll be in book form, ebook form, whatever. But actually, all the Torah portions laid out with notes and the scriptures that go along with it and stuff like that for small group studies for families, whatever, to sit down practically and to go along with them. So that's what we're trying. That's my goal here at TUC, is to foster more spiritual guidance and practicality, so that when people come over to this very scary anthropological concept of the Torah, and this is so Jewish, that kind of stuff, and to just say no, come on here, like this is it's really not that complicated. And actually, when you actually dig into it, you're going to realize that your entire understanding of the Bible before this was like the 10%. It was like the tip of the iceberg. And then when you understand the Torah, when you go home and read the Bible for yourself and stop listening to how other people tell you to interpret the Bible, when you actually read it, then it blows everything out of the water, everything you thought you knew. Oh, and there's another really fun and exciting addition, which Sarah and I are currently developing, one which will benefit many well beyond this ministry, but I can't give it away until it has neared completion. I won't tell you guys, but it's going to be really awesome. I can't wait to announce it. So I do ask that you please pray and consider investing in the future of TUC. Many are coming to the truth of Yahushua HaMashiach and his Father's commands via the Torah. And of course, my theme verse is Revelation 14:12, which talks about the set apart who endure to the end. And this is Revelation, mind you, when apparently the law was done away with. And the saints are defined as those who keep the Father's commands and the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach, telling you that the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach is not complete without the Father's commands. You can't sever the two. So let me just, I cut the sentence off. Let me try this again. Many are coming to the truth of Yahushua HaMashiach and his Father's commands, Revelation 14:12, via the Torah, though the alternative research, or through the alternative research being offered. Thank you for reading this, and shalom, Noel Joshua Hadley, 130:24. So let me show you. Now, there's a couple ways. I started the fundraiser today, and oh man, it's not here. I got to kill the screen here. Give me a second here, and bring this back up again. I wish there was an easier way to do this. I didn't have to kill the screen. So here's what we've raised so far today. I know I gave you a lofty number, right? My goal is $15,000 to keep this afloat. And today, I just started this today. We're already $1,900 into this, and only 7 donations. 7 donations brought $1,900. This is achievable. It can be done. And I thank everybody who's already participated. So there's a link to this video. You can go over there to the GoFundMe account. You can contribute. Also, Patreon, you can go there, become a monthly member, so on and so forth. I do really appreciate it, everybody. I'll leave this up for just a moment, and you can see there the article I just read to you. It's here as well, so you can go to the GoFundMe account. You could read what I just went through, and let me give you also a quick tour here, just in case you guys didn't know this. So I have to stop my screen again, and pull this back up. All right. So I just want to show you guys, for those of you that do become Patreon. Oh man, you serious? You it says you must be a patron to see the. What do you mean? I'm the owner of this site. What do you mean you have to be a patron? Well, okay. Well, that didn't work out. I need more coffee. Oh man, this has never happened to me before. Here I'm live, and my own website has kicked me out. As you can see here, it looks like it had kicked me out. Oh my goodness, the nerve, I tell you. I'll have to sign back in as administrator, but I'm not going to do that on live camera. So for now, Anyways, what you're supposed to see here is my archives room where I have dozens and dozens and dozens of papers, PDFs that are all downloadable for anyone who is a now, you can go through each individual article and you can get it, but I have a whole room here that's just easily navigatable. Is that a word? Navigation seaworthy. It's seaworthy, and you can go pull them down. I have hundreds of articles on here. I mean, some of these papers are hundreds of pages each too. I mean, just a lot of information. I put my life's work into this, and I think I give this away I've been giving this away for free for years, but I believe that a man is due his wages. I really do. I don't believe in entitlement. I don't believe that that somebody if it's the truth that they don't deserve to get paid for. I don't believe that at all. So support your favorite YouTube channel. It doesn't have to be mine, but or provider or whatever. Your pill your pill dispenser, your truth dispenser. All right. Let me get off this page because that's going to be a deterrent for the rest of this. So what I wanted to do for the remainder of the discussion tonight is, yes, this is Charlie Brown. So I used to be a big Charles Schulz Peanuts fan back in the day, and I can tell you that I've read every single comic strip for all 50 years, 1950 through 2000. I was a big fan back in the day. Anyways, that being said, so I want to take you guys through my, I guess, life story, and be kind of a nice little meet and greet for those of you who don't know much about me. I was born on December 28th, 1980. Now, the story that my mom gives is I don't think my parents will ever recognize how prophetic this was. Is my dad was taking down the Christmas tree, right? So he was taking down the Christmas tree, and my mom was sitting there, and as that happened, she went into labor pains. They rushed her to the hospital, and I guess I was coming out so fast. I was like coming out in the hallway. She was in a wheelchair, and they're trying to get her into the delivery room, and I'm just coming out. So I grew up in a parsonage. Now, for those of you who don't know what a parsonage is a house on church property, meaning it's there on loan to the pastor, the resident pastor. And my dad was pastoring a church called CBC, or Centinela Bible Church. It was in Hawthorne, California. Hawthorne was the home of the Beach Boys, but it's kind of the suburbs of LAX, and it's pretty close to Manhattan Beach, and just a hop and a skip from really West Hollywood and Hollywood and Beverly Hills, all that, just down the freeway, right? So I grew up on church property. My backyard opened up into the church parking lot. I mean, my life was good memories. The 1980s was a great decade for me. I have almost nothing but pleasant memories. Good childhood. Grew up very poor because it was a parsonage. Not a lot of income for a pastor. I remember one of probably the first impactful moment in my life was as a PK, pastor's kid, and I attended Awana. Now, a lot of you know what Awana is. I'm surprised how many people don't have a clue what Awana is. Awana is it's like Baptist-based, King James. Well, no, it's not Baptist-based because it's in a lot of different denominations, but it is King James only. And it's like a Bible memory verse club for children. They start you out young, like in preschool, and they go from the Cubbies to the Sparkies, and they go on up to like a second or third grade or something like that. And I remember being a Cubby. I had my little blue vest. It had its patches on there, and the memory verse that I had to memorize that week, I still remember it to this day. It actually is not a verse in the Bible, but it's not a chapter and verse. But it was, God is Jesus and Jesus is God. That's all I had to go recite that. I was like 4 or 5 years old. And I went and recited it. passed. I got my little stamp, whatever, in my book. I was really excited. I'm jumping out of the room. I remember where I was. I was going out to the parking lot to go play over at the basketball court. And as I walked right into the hallway, I heard a voice, a very like, I don't know if it was Allah Hayam, the Father. I don't know if it was the Ruach HaKodesh. I don't know if it was Yahushua HaMashiach. I don't know to this day, but I knew it was a divine voice immediately. And the voice said, "Do you know what this means? That God is Jesus and Jesus is God." And I remember saying out loud, responding, like people like, what is he saying? You know, but I remember saying out loud, "I think so, yes." And then the voice responded, uh, "I will always be with you, and I will never forsake you." And I will never forget that. And from that moment on, I always felt like I had this provision over me from the Father. Of course, I knew the Son back then as Jesus, right? I would say Yahushua HaMashiach now. So growing up, let's see, what was the next big event in my life? For a while, my dad, he moved up to Fresno, to the Eva. He was a assistant pastor. I decided to make this move. He was an assistant pastor at Evangelical Free Church in Clovis, which Clovis is, I say Fresno because most people don't know where Clovis is. It's like the suburbs of Fresno. And I remember I was baptized there. My dad actually baptized me. And that was my first experience of, like, aside from that incidents in Cubbies, it was like my really big gnosis experience. What I mean by gnosis, because that's a scary word for some people, is that gnosis is something that you can only experience, but you can't explain to people. Like, you can't put it into words. So the opposite of gnosis is agnostic, meaning that, you know, an agnostic would say there is no true revelation from God, right? But a gnosis is, no, you can have a intimate uh, experience from God, something that nobody else has. And I remember being baptized. I was 9 years old, and I came out of the water, and I kid you not, like, nobody told me about this. Nobody told me what to expect or anything like that. But I knew immediately that that was the presence of the Holy Spirit, what I would say now, the Ruach HaKodesh. And I remember I don't remember anything else about that day. I don't remember anything that happened afterwards, but I remember walking down the aisle out of that church after I was baptized and feeling like I was like floating, like what was keeping me in my body. Like, it was just joyous experience. I'm like, this is the presence of the Ruach HaKodesh. We moved from there. That whole situation, that church fell apart. I learned very early in life, as a young boy, I saw firsthand experience of the venomous church politics and how ugly it can get. And it was so bad that eventually my parents divorced. They divorced, and we attended that church from like 1990 to 1991 into 1992. My parents divorced around what was it, 2012 or something like that. But according to the testimony I heard years later, it was that event that kind of put the leaven in the relationship that, became a poison, gangrenous, decades later, and it wasn't dealt with at that time, unfortunately. I mean, it was a tough experience. We were basically homeless and pretty close to living out of the car back in 1992. We had to move into my grandmother's house just to survive. That's a whole nother story. But my next big probably development would be when, let's see, we moved back to Hawthorne, and my dad started pastoring again at the same church, CBC. We moved back into the parsonage. And I remember, okay, so it was a very small church, and there were several people in the high school group. And as I was going into junior high, I was the only junior high at the church. And so at first, like, they didn't know what to do with me because I wasn't in a children's church, and I wasn't a good fit for the high schoolers. And so this guy comes along. His name is Brad. He lives in, I believe, in New Jersey now. He was about 15 years older than me. I mean, if I was like 15, he was probably like 30, right? And he was newly married. And he said, "I'm going to invest in you." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, I'm gonna do church with you during Sunday school hour. I'm gonna sit there, and I'm like, "Okay, cool." So he takes me off to this room, and he spent like an entire year with me. And he said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to read through the book of Romans. I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to do like a curriculum. I'm not going to give you sermons or studies. We're just going to read together through Romans. I'm like, okay, cool. And he said, we're going to spend a whole year doing that. I'm like, a whole year to read through it? Okay. But he said, no, we're going to memorize the book. We're going to, if we can memorize the whole book, awesome. But we're going to memorize it line for line, starting on line 1. And that was one of the greatest investments anyone has ever given to me. And I know I frustrated that guy to no end. I mean, he wanted to quit a lot because I wasn't putting in effort. And he would come in and go like, you didn't memorize anything this week. And I'm like, yeah, I was, like watching like I Love Lucy reruns or something. I had something more important to do apparently. And but he kept at it with me. And I'm telling you that the investment he put into me, like I will never forget. I wish I could hunt him down again. I don't even know where he lives and just tell him, I know that you probably thought that was a waste of time, but it wasn't. Thank you so much for doing that for me, for investing in me. And it was at that time in my life when I realized I was kind of coming into consciousness and realizing that the faith and religion of my parents couldn't be my own, that I was coming into manhood and that I needed to decide, was I going to be a part of this agenda or not? Was I going to believe in the Bible or not? And I quickly, it was in this Roman study. I remember I was sitting there in my room alone, and I guess it was the Romans Road. It must have been the Romans Road. I remember I felt so convicted. I started feeling like I am just a worthless sinner. I am so just, today I would use the word unclean. I didn't use that back then. But and I just thought that, there's no possible way that I'm worthy of salvation or anything. And that's when it hit me, just the unfathomable love of Allaham, or I would say God back then. And I just remember as a 15-year-old just breaking down in tears, just how beautiful the gospel story is, and how unworthy I am, and how glorious Mashiach is and what he did for us. And so it was also at the same time that I had a sleep paralysis incident. And it wasn't until I came to the Truther movement years later as an adult, and I started researching the Anunnaki and the reptilians, and I was like, oh my goodness. I remember I saw this one depiction of a reptilian, and I said, that looks exactly like the reptilian, the creature that was in my room. And I remember I couldn't move in bed. I was paralyzed. And this, I don't know if you can hear that beeping, that's the coffee back there. And there was this creature that stood over me. And it was one of the only experiences, I'm sorry if there's any charismatics listening into this, it was one of the only experiences in my life that I ever heard tongue babbling too. I didn't know anything about tongue babbling back then. Interestingly enough, I could interpret it. I knew what he was saying, but I knew that it was babbling. And this, so I'll call him a reptilian. He was telling me that if I went through with a life of service to God, that they would just ruin me. They would do everything that they could to destroy me, And I remember being so terrified by that experience because it was sleep paralysis. I didn't even know what that was. I had never experienced anything like that before. I remember for the next 2 days, I was trembling. I couldn't speak, and people were like, what is wrong with you? And I couldn't even tell people what it was. Well, lo and behold, because we lived in a parsonage is kind of like Missionary Hotel. And these missionaries will go on these circuits. And what people don't realize with missionaries is it's kind of like this discussion we're having tonight. Missionaries hate asking for money. They hate it, but they have to, right? It's like they need the support to continue doing what they're doing. Guys, if the mission back in the day, now maybe it's different now with the internet. Of course, the world has changed a lot. But back in the day, if the missionaries are coming home on a home journey, in their minds, they failed because their life is back in Papua New Guinea or India or East Africa, wherever they're at, right? Wherever they're stationed, that's their life. Those are their friends. That's their church. That's their family. They have to come back over here and hop around church after church after church and meet a lot of strangers and get the talk about whatever, oh, you're just, into money, whatever, that kind of thing. They have to deal with that week after week. So we hosted a lot of missionaries. We were Missionary Hotel, and I grew up with these, stories of demon possession and, wrestling anacondas, like people getting flung onto walls by demon possessed people and witch doctors. Like, these are the stories that were just common in my house. I didn't even have to watch them in movies. They would just come over firsthand experiences. And really, these missionaries come over, and they identified themselves as YWAM missionaries. That means youth with a mission, if anyone is familiar with it. I've never been with YWAM. I have encountered YWAM in other countries. But I was really interested. I'm like, you can just go to these other countries with YWAM? They're like, yeah, we can send you anywhere you want in the world, anywhere. We send people all over. But they said, we have something kind of seems more up your alley. And they gave me the name of a missions organization called Teen Missions International. Some of you may have heard of that. And I'm like, yeah, sign me up. I want to do that. And they basically, for like 3 months, they will send teenagers. This is pre 9/11, guys. The world was a different place. They would just send you to a different country for like 3 months at a time. And you just live there and you work. And I'm 15 years old at the time. I'm like, yeah, sign me up. And I did. I signed up. By the time I was 16, I went off for 3 months and lived in East Africa, Kenya, in the Rift Valley. I was living in a tent with the Maasai tribe. I mean, this was the most incredible experience of my life. And I was right on what's called Lake Naivasha, actually a place called Hippo Lagoon. And it's right where, when I had arrived, National Geographic had just finished doing a 9-month documentary there on the hippos. So I could talk a whole night on that. I'm not going to talk about the amazing experience of when I was 16, living with the Maasai tribe and, fending off the baboons and the hyenas, coming through my camp every night, and the zebras and the giraffes and the lions and, the hippos and all that. It was great times. So at the end of that summer, 2 really interesting things happened. One is I flew to England, and I stayed there for a week before I came home. And there was I was staying in like this old World War II orphanage, when they were kind of like, if you know the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when they were sending all the children out of London because of the air raids. This is one of the places they sent children to, and they lived in this huge home. And now it was just vacant. It was just hall. It was like Professor Kirk's house. I mean, it was just hallway after hallway, and empty rooms with just like a couch or a wardrobe. I remember one room had the wardrobe, and with the skeleton key locks, and there's nobody in it. I'm just sleeping on the floor in a sleeping bag. It was awesome. And this pastor came through, gave a fiery sermon. Now, I have never in my life ever responded to an altar call. I always have found altar calls many times to be emotionally deceptive. Even as a child, I'm like, yeah, come on now. You're just playing with my emotions, And people go up because they feel they need to or whatever. And, it's all for show, because if you don't, it's like, what's your problem, right? But this was really interesting because his altar call was not about repentance or whatever. It was, I want you to come forward if you want to dedicate your life to be a missionary. And I'm like, what? Because I had never heard that in an altar call before. That's what I wanted. I wanted to dedicate my life to be a missionary. And so that was the only altar call I ever went up to. And I remember I was like kind of trembling as I walked up, because I heard the voice and telling me, like, do you know what you are devoting yourself to? This is serious. Like, this isn't a game. If you're going to go up there, this is serious. And I was like, yeah, I think I know what I'm doing. And I went up there and I devoted myself to be a missionary. Now, I had no clue what I was, what I was going to be as a missionary growing up. It was all mysterious. I'm 16 years old this time. Now, the other important thing that happened that very week is that I was standing in front of Buckingham Palace. Yes, I know Buckingham Palace, right? I was standing in front of Buckingham Palace the moment we got word that Princess Diana was killed in a tunnel in Paris. Now, whether or not she, died or not, that's a moot point. And so I remember I got home and I watched the funeral on TV, and within a couple days, I'm 16 years old. I go back to school. Now, I had just had the most amazing summer ever. I mean, I might as well have gone to Narnia. I might as well have gone to another dimension, another universe, whatever. And I'm coming back to this ghetto high school with bars and gangs and, drugs, just the whatever, just awful, right? I feel like I'm in prison. And I was in an indoctrination, like a FEMA camp, basically. Um, and it was a third period. We just had our nutrition, and I was not the best student. I was actually a very I was very I rebelled against the system. I was actually very polite towards. I was always polite towards authority. I was never, if they saw me as rebellious towards them, it's because in my own head I wasn't going with the agenda, right? But I always spoke respectfully. But oh, I'll get to that. I remember the bell rang, nutrition's over. I'm sitting there, and I remember the very moment my future wife walked through the door. I saw her for the first time ever, and it was the only time. This is not a pickup line that I have. It was the only time ever that the voice of, it was either Allah Hayam. I actually think it was the Ruach Hakodesh. I believe it was the Ruach Hakodesh speaking to me. It was the only time, and the exact words were, as I was looking at her, she came in her cadet uniform, and I was just awestruck by her, just smacked over. And the voice said, "Be kind to her. She's of importance to you." Those were the exact words. "Be kind to her. She's of importance to you." And from that moment, I'm like, what? I'd never looked at a woman before and heard the voice of the Almighty, or either the Ruach Hakodesh or Yahuwah or Al-Hayam speaking to me like that. And from that moment on, I was very fearful of her, like a holy fear, And I took that advice, and it was basically the matchmaker, the Ruach Hakodesh, saying, "Look, I'm going to try my best to get you guys together. Don't screw this up." It's like one of those things, like if you know you have you're going to get the job, and they tell you like you're going to get the job, but you have to go to the interview, and just like don't show up with a hangover. Just have your teeth brushed. Something like that. Like, don't screw this up. Like if you screw this up, like just we're going to smack you over the head type thing, right? That's what this was. I'll tell you how this matchmaking situation worked. My wife Sarah was a 4.0 plus student. She was the valid Victorian of her class. Okay, she graduated with a full ride to college. Not only a full ride to college, she got a full ride to the University of Spoiled Children, USC, for her master's. All right, and I was, of course, my inspiration was like, living under a pier and being a poet and driving across the country on a motorcycle. That was my, kind of my view of a good time. And so I wasn't supposed to be in this class. I was actually in an honors class. There was only one honors class I was ever put in my whole high school experience, and that was this class. And afterwards, my counselor, it was the only class in all of high school I failed to. I failed out of this class. And afterwards, my counselor came to me and said, "I'm sorry, I put you in the wrong class. You weren't supposed to be in there." So you could see how Yah's on the move here. Like, this was all planned, right? And I got to give this story. I was going to pass this one up, but so I did have some. I'd like to think I had some wisdom as a young man. I didn't have a lot going for me grade wise, and hold on here. I just noticed that. Let's get rid of that. Okay. And so, because my wife was on the cadet squad, I realized that if I wanted to get close to, she wasn't my wife at that time, the girl that the divine spoke to me, I wanted to get close to her, but I realized that to get close to someone on the squad, you had to be, everyone else in the squad had to be okay with you. I kind of understood that dynamic between, like, with men, it's not like that at all, but with women, it is, right? Their girlfriends have to be okay with you. And so rather than ruining a good thing, I decided I looked at all of her friends. I took note of all of her friends. And I said, I'm going to make friends with her friends first. And I literally did. I went up to her friends and I made friends with them. There was nothing like, flirting or anything like that, just, straight on friends. And we're coming up on Christmas break. This is 1997, if you need to know where we're at on the timetable. And the movie Titanic is coming out with James Cameron. And we're coming up on Christmas break. And I asked one of her friends on the squad, could I get her number? And they're like, ooh, and they give me her number. And so over Christmas break, I go watch the movie Titanic, and my heart will go on, all that crap. And I'm really inspired. I'm like, this is such a good movie. I'm so inspired by this movie. And so I decide when I get home, I'm going to call her up. Now, this is before cell phones. You remember there's a household phone. It might be in the kitchen, it might be in the living room. It's got the wire, right? And my parents had a phone in their bedroom, same line. Of course, I wanted the privacy, right? Because I'm going to talk to a girl. So I tell my parents, hey, can I use it in your phone, in your room? I closed the door. I was probably in there for an hour trying to work up the courage. I started punching in the numbers and then I would hang up, I wouldn't get there. I finally got through. One of her sisters picked up the phone. I'm like, no, because now the gossip has already started up in the household. But when I got Sarah on the other end, I didn't ask her on a date. Of course, I'd come to find out later she was too young. Her parents wouldn't have let her anyways. But I said, I said, when we come back to class, can I be your lab partner? And she said, yes. I'm like, yeah. So I got to be her lab partner, right? So, and Sarah has told me since that I was her favorite lab partner ever because I let her do all the work. And I thought I would be like the worst ever, but she said, no, you don't understand. Every lab partner I had, they were so like academically like ambitious that there'd be these arguments over who did what, and you just let me do all the work. And that was awesome. So I'm like, yeah. So anyways, so let's see, let's fast forward. Graduated from high school. Let's see, I don't know what to tell next. I did a lot of more missions work, went to Africa again, went to Israel again, different stuff like that. Eventually ended up marrying my wife. We were very young. She was 19, I was 21. We were both in college. She was, like I said, she had a full ride. I did not. So I'm going to city college, right? And we actually eloped. We got married secretly, and my parents knew. My college pastor knew a few, and they all supported it. What I mean by secretly is we didn't tell anybody. We just kept it very, very hush, low key. We actually drove out to Las Vegas and got married 3:30 in the morning. Now we were young and unknowledgeable about how these things work. We thought you just went to Vegas and got married because that's the way it's portrayed in the movies. Well, it actually doesn't work out that way. So we would go to like the drive-through chapel and all these different places, and we're like, we want to get married, and they're like, do you have a marriage license? And we're like, no, this is Vegas. They're like, well, you can't get married without a marriage license. And we're like, well, where do we get one? And they're like, you gotta go at this hour. This is like 2 a.m, whatever. It's like, well, you got to go to the courthouse. So and because it was a 24-hour courthouse in Vegas, and I would say, well, why am I going to come back here again if I can just get married at the courthouse? There's a judge there. So we go to the courthouse. We actually wait in line to get married. I will never forget the couple in front of us. They were so wasted. They were like, we never saw their face because they're just like, like this, like, hands and arms over each other, like trying to hold each other up and making out. They go in front of us, they get married. I hope they made it. I don't really know. Then it's our turn to go in to the judge, and the judge says, do you have any witnesses? I'm like, this is Vegas. I thought you could just get married. She's like, no, you need witnesses. And we're like, oh, this is just ridiculous. So she's like, okay. She calls in the Filipino security guard. Great. He didn't speak any English. He was a witness. We got married 3:30 in the morning. We were so poor that we eventually moved into a garage, had no bathroom in the kitchen. Then we finally got an apartment, which did have a bathroom and a kitchen. And we were so poor, but there was never a day we fought. There was never, we just loved every minute of it. We were together. We were building this empire together, and they say a lot of people, there's all these myths out there that you have to be established before you get married. I think that's the biggest BS. It's like, no, build it together, build your fortune together. So I got to tell this story. So again, I'm 21, my wife is 19. We're really young. I actually dropped out of college and worked so that my wife could, and she flew through college and then her master's. But another couple of friends of ours, they got married at the same time as we did. They were the same age, very young. And we all four of us said, we need to start like a marriage group, like a young marrieds group. So we went through the proper channels. We went to our church. It was, I'll give the name. It was Grace Brethren Church in Long Beach. It was a mid-sized church, like 1,000 people or more that went there. And so we were living in Long Beach, California at this time. And the staff told us, no, we're not going to do that. And we're like, what do you mean? Like, we want to do a young marrieds group on Sunday morning. They're like, yeah, that's not going to do that. It just wasn't their agenda. So we wisely stated, I wish it didn't take me so many decades to realize that I had the spiritual authority and the responsibility over my own life and not what a pastor tells me. Most people go through their whole lives and they think they have no spiritual authority and they have to depend on their pastor, right? Anyways, we said, okay, fine. If you're not going to let us meet for Sunday school hour, we'll go off campus and meet somewhere else. And they grudgingly said, well, okay, we don't like that, but okay. So we go off to It's a Grind Coffee House and we're meeting there. Well, now the problem was is that it started attracting other people to the group. And the church was like, we can't have this. So they invited us back on campus. So you can come back, but the kicker is that you can't be in any classroom. You have to be outside. You can meet outside on the campus, but don't go in any of the classrooms. There's a lot of empty classrooms. And we're like, okay. So we meet out there, and that's another eyesore because now more people are being attracted to this group. And now it's like they can't have that. So then they move us into a back room. Now, why am I telling you this story? There were a lot of people getting married at the same time that were young at this church. And it was a very trendy church, very, cool kid church, a lot of tattoos, right? This is when tattoos are coming through. And we had like a Hollywood script, right? The guy who wrote, was it Bruce Almighty or whatever? He worked, and a guy working for Entertainment Weekly, it's one of those churches. It's like a Hollywood church. And so a lot of these young kids getting married, it wasn't cool for them to be in a young marrieds group, right? They want to be with the cool people, right? The Hollywood people, and so they didn't attend our group. Now, again, the reason I'm telling the story is that within 10 years, every single person that was in our young marrieds group were still married. And to this day, to my knowledge, every single person that was in the group is still married, 20 plus years. Within 10 years, every single couple, save one, and I hope they make it, I really do, they were all divorced. Every single one of them. Now, I've spent most of before we had children, and I'll get into that a little bit, I spent most of my adult life leading young marrieds groups. Young marrieds groups was a passion of mine. And that's where I kind of got my spurs, so to speak, leading young marrieds groups. And I look back at this and I go, was there anything I said that made those marriages successful? And my conclusion is no, there was nothing I said. There was no recipe for success, nothing I said, no wisdom, anything like that. It was on the mere basis that all these young couples, including my wife and I, we came into this going, we need help. We don't know how to do this. We want to invest in our marriage, right? It's the same way for anyone listening. Like, you need to invest in your spirit, your soul, your spiritual life, invest in your family, right? You need to take that responsibility. And so the people from the very beginning, they're like, yeah, we're going to invest in this. They were off to a good start. Whereas the others, they thought they had it. They're good to go. They fell apart, just shattered. So it was at this time too that I started I entered a missions internship because I wanted to become a missionary. At that time, I was really interested in Islam. Wanted to go off to the Middle East, be one of those undercover guys, type of thing. That excited me. And I remember it kind of started getting a little wobbly because there was something I could never figure out about the Bible. It just never made sense to me. There was something wrong theologically, because you're taught to interpret all the scripture through Paul's letters. I mean, if we're all honest here, people attack the Torah all the time. There's got to be something really wrong about this. About you open up the Bible, you skip the first 1,000 pages, and you go straight to Paul's letters, and all of the scripture is interpreted through there. There's something wrong about it. You're missing something, and I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. And I remember I sat in a church meeting, and it's always statements you make. You hear this all the time, where you burn bridges, and you get thrown out to the curb. I remember saying to the senior pastor, and a bunch of other pastors were there in the room, and I said, I get this feeling that if Jesus Christ were to come back to the earth today, that he would be overturning tables all over again in churches and teaching us something that we have wrong theologically. This was my actual phrase, that would cause the church to crucify him all over again. And they just looked at me and they didn't say get out, but it was a get out moment. Like, you're done. Like, you just ruined your internship. It's over. And from that moment on, when they saw that I was a dissenter, I had no future there. And of course, that realization came to me finally years later when I came to the truth of the Torah. Now, let's fast forward. I'll talk about my children. I have 3 children, but a lovely daughter who I love more than life itself. She's the joy of my life, and my 2 sons as well. They're twins. And we spent, let's see, I think we were married like 14 years before we had children. It was a long, long time of waiting and the inability to have children. And anyways, finally happened. It was a glorious moment. We had a home birth, both born in our bedroom. I delivered them, of course, there. And so this is where the narrative really starts picking up. So they were born in 2014, in July 2014. And the following year in April, the first several months are a blur, because I had twin boys. And I just remember looking out the window going, it's light out, it's dark out, it's light out. I had no idea what time of day it was or day of the week, whatever. It was just big blur, right? Trying to survive with these 2 babies, with twins. And it was April of 2015, and we were dedicating them in front of the church. I was there with some of my buddies. One of the pastor of the church, he was a buddy of mine. He was dedicating his beautiful daughter. And so I'm holding Eric up there, and my wife has Ira. And all of a sudden, once again, I hear the voice of Allah Hayam. And the actual words was wake up. It was wake up, boom. And I kid you not, it was like a light switch. Just there was this dark to light moment. They would just click. And the voice was so audible. I'm standing up there like a deer in front of headlights, and the pastor's talking this long speech, and then he's praying, and I don't hear anything he's saying. And I'm looking around at the whole audience going, did anyone just hear that? That's how it was like this idea of like the Old Testament, like Noah, build a boat, it was like that. It was wake up. And I'm standing there going, Father, what do you want? What do you want to show? Anything. You show me anything. And that is the moment I literally, when we talk about waking up, that was the moment I woke up. And it was a light switch that Yahuwah personally did. He personally turned it on and said, I want you to wake up now. I want you to come to life. And I went from being a zombie, a normie, to overnight, like this is April of 2015. So overnight, like I'm learning that Rome is evil, right? And they got the Lucifer telescope, and I'm learning about the Fed, and I'm learning about FEMA camps and a Jade Helm. If you guys all remember summer 2015, Jade Helm. And my wife is as well, and we're just like just quickly. I mean, and then it quickly, goes into the flat Earth and the Mandela effect and things like that, right? All these things are coming together, and we're in California, and we're like, judgment is coming on California. California is going to be judged, and we want out of this place. And I remember we said it at the same time, my wife and I, where we said, let's sell everything, move into an RV, and get out of here. And so this is now, we go from April to June of 2015. In June of 2015, within 8 weeks, because we're going to August 1st, we successfully sold our house, got rid of all of our things. Our family is like, you guys have gone off the deep end. You guys went cuckoo mode. What happened when you dedicated your child? Because something happened to you guys. We don't know you guys anymore. And we drove August 1st, 2015. We drove over the border. Actually, it was August 2nd. We drove over the border into Yuma, Arizona, over the border there. So as we're driving over the border, I once again hear the voice of the divine. And I hope you guys understand why I say the voice of the divine. I can't always, I don't always know if this is Allah speaking, if this is Yahuwah speaking, or I should say Yahushua HaMashiach or the Ruach HaKodesh. I think this time this was Yahusha speaking. And I remember I'm driving over the border, leaving California, right as we left. California's to my back, Yuma's ahead of us. And the voice said, I'm going to take everything from you, everything. And I'm thinking like I'm being chastised. I'm being like, what did I do wrong? And it said again, I'm going to take everything from you. And not only that, I knew exactly where it was going to happen. Like we thought we were set. We had all these investments, while other people are partying and going seeing Coldplay and whatever. We're like, we're investing, right? And it happened to the long story short, it happened to the very day, to the very place he told me it would happen. And we're months later, we're leaving Florida. We drove across the country for several months, about 9 months, trying to find a place where Yah wanted us. And I just prayed my way across the country. And as we're leaving the Florida border, going up to Georgia, up the I-95, we're a mile into Georgia. And Sarah looks at me and said, "We lost everything. It's all gone." And I knew it had to be as we were leaving Florida. And it got to the point where we went into debt so quickly that within a few weeks after that, we didn't even know how we were going to feed our children another meal. Like we had lost everything. And so we parked it in Mount Pleasant, which is just outside of Charleston, South Carolina, at the KOA there, which is a really cool KOA if anyone's never been there before. It's actually an old slave plantation. Of course, we live now on an old slave plantation, but the plantation house is still there and all that, and like the slave graveyard, and so I was walking down this trail that the slaves apparently walked down for hundreds of years on the way to the rice paddies, and we had lost everything, and I just got to this point where I just started praising Yah for taking it all from us. I'm like, again, remember the Romans moment? I'm like, I'm just not worthy. I'm not worthy to have anything. You can give us whatever you want. You have the right to take it away. And who am I to critique that? And so it was probably like within a couple of days. Interestingly enough, I'm not a Calvary Chapel guy. I've had some experience with Calvary Chapel, but I decided to go visit this Calvary Chapel. And we're in the worship service, and I hear again the voice of Yahusha, and he says, "You're going to stay right here." And I'm like, affirm that? Did I hear? Do you want me to stay here? And he said, "I want you to stay right here." And I said, "Okay, just for clarification." Like everyone's singing, right? This is in the middle of a service. I'm like, just for clarification, did you say you want me to stay right here? And he said, the third time, I want you to stay right here. And interesting enough, this Calvary Chapel, we don't go, don't go to Sunday church, but this is right around the corner of our house. Within 1 week, he provided us with an amazing job and this beautiful house on an alligator preserve. I mean, it's just unbelievably gorgeous. We love it, and he's had us there ever since. And so he was systematically, breaking us down through this and chiseling away the rough stone to make us dependent on him. So the flat Earth is taking off. All this is going on. And I was a closeted flat earther for at least a year. I had actually started my original blog, Our Way is a Highway, in 2015, which then developed into The Unexpected Cosmology, on the basis that I wanted to start giving people truth and stuff like, oh, John Kerry's going down to Antarctica and the Watchers are there, things like that, right? But I didn't, I don't want to talk about the Rockefellers, but I didn't, at that time, I didn't have that. You guys would never know this now, reading my stuff. I was so intimidated. I didn't talk about anything. And so before my parents found out that I believed the earth was flat online, I wanted to go back to California and tell them in person. Now, I love my parents. I don't want to disrespect them or anything like that. I want to honor my parents when I give the story, right? So I'm not belittling them or anything like that. At least I don't intend to. This is just fact. This is just the way it happened. Um, so I go back, I fly back to California. This is like December of 2016 at this point, because I had intended in January 2017 to start my flat Earth writings up, and I sit down with my dad, and I'm like, I've given this story a lot of times. A lot of you probably know this, and I said, Dad, let me just back up because I grew again. Remind you, I grew up in a parsonage. Dad was a pastor. Grew up around Greek speakers, that kind of stuff. And I grew up in a sola scriptura household. That is one of the banners of the Protestant Reformation. Sola scriptura, scripture alone. Chapter and verse. I'm not going to believe any tradition of man. It needs to say it in scripture. It needs to come from God. It needs to be written down. And if it says it, I will believe it. Right? I will take it literally at its word. I'll give you one, Psalm chapter 1. Blessed is the man who delights in the Torah of Yahuwah, and on that Torah he meditates day and night. He will be like what? He will be like a tree planted by the water. I mean, telling you literally that if you delight day and night in the Torah, you will be firm in your foundations, right? We're not supposed to believe that, right? But I take that literally. That's what it says. That's what I do. You are blessed if you delight in the day and night, the Torah. Well, I sat down with my dad, and I was like, Dad, we grew up as young Earth creationists, and we're really into. He said, yeah. And I said, well, I started reading about like this idea of cosmology, how here we are, the unexpected cosmology, because it was unexpected, right? About this, like, I couldn't remember what it was called back then. It's the firmament. I'm like, what is it called? And my dad said, it's the firmament. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, there's water above. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, there's these pillars. And he's like, yes, the pillars that hold up. And I'm like, he's describing it better than me. And I'm like, Dad, how come you've never told me about this before? And I'll never forget that moment. He stands up and he says, I'm going to walk into the other room. I'm going to pull down my physics textbook from college. I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to prove you wrong. He walked out of the room. He never came back. And I was like flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that. And you know why he never came back? Is because he didn't have the heart to disprove the Bible. He knew what the Bible said. And it was in that moment very early on that I recognized it's not hard for people to see the flat earth in the Bible. It's not that hard. It's the fact that this argument, it's not about the shape of the earth. It's about the shape of humanity. It's not about, levels and all that. It's about people seeing the globe and everything in that globe that they love and realizing that if that's wrong, that if the lie is so grand that is wrong, that there's all these other things in this globe that they huddle close to them, to their bosom, that they have to give up. It's a Pandora's box. When you open that up, you just see all the demons fly out. All right, so I'm now engaged in the flat earth movement, and I miss those early days, like 2015, 2016, even 2017. It was such a good time where a lot of people, they all like knew each other, and even if they didn't know me that well, I knew them, and they kind of knew me, that kind of stuff. And there was a disease in the flat earth movement, and his name is Rob Skiba. Allow me to explain. So, I'm Protestant, right? And I'm kind of like digging the Anabaptists at this time, because the Anabaptists were like the rebels of the Protestant Reformation. They believed in soul sleep, and the Amish come out of the Anabaptists, right? And I was kind of digging that, so I'm kind of in these like Baptist crowds. And I gave, I admit, I gave King James only the old college try. And I really did. And the King James only people are looking at me going like, no, you're not one of us. Just go somewhere else. And I'm like, okay, all right. But one of the things that a lot of people back then who were more Protestant minded, because back then the flat earth movement is very biblical. Like, it's changed dramatically now. It seems like, other crowds have taken it over. But it was just a lot of good old Baptist boys, talking about scripture. And he was a disease because he was bringing in the Torah, right? He was bringing these Hebrew roots. He was a Judaizer. And people were coming up to me going, no, you need to disprove this Rob Skiba guy. You need to shut him down. He's coming in to destroy the whole movement. We had a good thing until this guy showed up. And so I didn't even know what Torah observant really was back then. I remember I went to the Flat Earth Conference in Raleigh, North Carolina, 2017. And that was the first time I ever met uh, uh, I saw people with tassels. I'm like, who are these people? Why are they wearing these tassels? That's how ignorant I was of understanding all this stuff. So um, basically, I was like, I'm going to use the book of Galatians. I'm going to prove Rob Skiba wrong. Now, it took me about a year of investigation. I started looking into it from November 2017. And by December of 2018, I was in such a fix. And I was very wise to not make a move against the Torah, because I think if I had, I think Yah would have he would have given me over to my delusions and shut down, just darkened my vision. I really think he would have. I see that happen a lot. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm supposed to do this hit piece on Rob Skiba. I'm going to call Rob Skiba up on the phone. And Rob Skiba knew. He knew who I was at this time. He knew I was a writer. He knew I was very talented. He knew I had the possibility of persuading a lot of people one way or another. He took the call with me. And of course, we formed a bond, a friendship after that. I spent many nights just talking to Rob Skiba and just hearing his stories, and just really good times. But I asked all the stereotypical questions. I'm like, yeah, Rob, but what about Peter's visions of the animals on the sheet? Got you there. You can't explain that one. And then he just, for anyone who knows Rob Skiba, he just whipped out his answer. I'm like, dang, Rob, that you're right. And I remember at the end of that conversation, I said to Rob, I said, he heard it on my voice. I'm just overjoyed. Like this well of joy bubbled up within me. And I said, Rob, you're right. The Torah abides, is eternal, and it is for all people. And that was like the turning point for me. And so I remember somebody got word that I had spoken to Rob Skiba, and he knew like a bunch of different Baptist pastors in the South. And this is not a coincidence. The last Sunday church we ever went to this independent Baptist church in the Charleston area. It was after that phone conversation. The pastor gets up there, and his whole sermon is about, thank God that cursed law is done away with, and we don't have to keep that anymore. And he kept saying over and over again that that the fleshly people who want or who desire to keep the law. I'm like, what kind of fleshly person wants to be obedient? Oh, you're so fleshly, you just want to be more obedient to the Father. Like, that makes no sense whatsoever, but whatever. And I looked at Sarah and I said, this is so wrong. And we got up and we left. We never came back. Like, and the next week was our first Sabbath. We kept it. It was like we entered this spiritual paradigm. I mean, it was just, it was so like nothing we'd ever experienced before. We felt like we entered this new dimension. It was glorious. So that kind of catches me up to speed, really. I've really enjoyed this experience with the unexpected cosmology, and just it really started because that I went through like a year or two of just learning and just eat, sleep, poop, flat earth type of thing, right? And you guys know how it is. You get so anxious, you just keep looking and devouring information. And then I got to the end of the year and I look back and go, I got no notes. I got nothing to show anybody. I can't remember half of it. I forgot probably 90% of what I read. And so I'm like, I got to start recording this stuff. So I just started taking what I was learning and writing it down and showing people, hey, what do you think about this? And that's really what this has been about all along. And, I don't claim to be right. I know that I'm wrong about a lot of things. This is not a pride issue for me. I mean, the very fact that I keep changing my opinion, and let me clarify this. I've changed my opinion many times on the scripture, many times. And every single time it is to take it more literally. Every time it is to when I realize I'm wrong on something and I embrace something else, people ask me all the time, Noel, how do you know what is true? What is your measuring stick? Now, you have to have the whole discussion on whether or not you believe the Bible is true, right? That's a whole different discussion. But assuming that we can come to the agreement that the Bible is the testimony of Yahuwah in his work, in his story, the way I gauge truth is if I embrace an idea and I start seeing all these things that I didn't see before, and it becomes more clear and focused, and crackling with illumination and animation, whatever. Like I'm like, yeah, this is just truth. This is building a fuller, richer picture for me. But when I start going in a direction and it's like things start shutting down and darkening and closing, I'm like, yeah, I think I need to backtrack. So yeah, that's kind of my story. I left out tons of details, and I've been talking for an hour and a half. But I hope you guys enjoyed my journey. And I just want to reiterate that I want to be doing this for many, many more years. I really love what I do. This brings me so much fulfillment in life, and I want to be a guide for people. I want to, and by the idea of being a guide or a teacher is that you're not telling people what to believe. All right. There's like this, I see the comments that go around online. They're like, Noel's a cult leader. The unexpected cosmology is a cult. It's like, really? Like, you think this place is a cult? We have a saying here that that TUC is the worst cult ever, because the whole idea here is that we all peacefully disagree with each other. We get together and we're like, here's what I've been looking at. And someone says, well, here's what I've been looking at. And someone else says, well, look what I've been looking at. And we're like, and we all think about it, right? And we all respectfully disagree with each other. And so the idea of a guide or a teacher is, again, not to hold your hand. It is not to tell you what to think, but it is to point the way for you to take the responsibility for yourself to go down the narrow path, right? It's to help kind of show the way, but you have to be able to ultimately make the journey for yourself. And so I see myself in a position where, again, I'm a missionary. I'm a missionary to the truth community, the pursuit of truth community, where I'm standing here and I'm talking about all these different stuff. I love just I'll talk about almost anything, right? I love to just sit in a room and just listen to people talk about different conspiratorial stuff. And I'm here to say, okay, but the ultimate fulfillment, all this stuff, well, yeah, we're being lied to, Satan's running the world, so on and so forth. It's a short season. But all of this points to the fact that there is a king. This king has laws, and that if you want to take a big, deeper steps of in your relationship with Yahuwah, is to be obedient to his commands, right? To keep the Sabbath day, to eat clean, to keep his feast, and you start there and you start expanding on the rest. That is the passion of my heart. To be the flag bearer, to hold up the flag. I'll close on this analogy. If you're looking at look at like battles that took place when gunpowder was invented. We're talking about the official narrative. So let's talk about the Civil War. I know, right? But what if the Civil War never happened? But just hang with me here. Maybe it was a series of just Masonic drills or whatever. But let's assume that we're in a Civil War battle, right? And there's explosions, and it's the heat of the sun, it's sweltering heat of summer, there's sweat, there's blood, there's people screaming, there's smoke, you can't see more than 10 feet in front of you, you can't hear anything, and your only hope of survival is to look for the flag bearer. And of course, each platoon would have their unique trumpeting calls to rally people, because unless if you're like within like 10 feet or whatever of your captain or whoever is running the show, you're not hearing anything they're talking about. It's confusing. You're dizzy. You don't know which way is north, east, south, or west, right? So you look for the flag bearer, you look for the flag guy, and you rally to the flag. And every platoon had their own flags. And if you remember the movie Glory, which took place actually in Charleston, my own hometown, where they charged Fort Wagner. Remember that scene where the flag bearer, he's running, he gets shot down, the flag falls. Another guy runs, he picks up the flag, he gets shot, it falls. And then another guy runs and grabs the flag, and you know that he's probably going to get shot, right? But that's the idea of the flag bearer. They're there to rally the people together and say, let's do this, right? So that's my vision for the unexpected cosmology, ultimately, to be that flag bearer for the people, to bring people into a deeper understanding of who Yahuwah is and his plan and his story. I love you guys. you know, I want to be around for many, many years. But like I said, the situation has to change. Going back to what I originally started with, um, you know, if we're going to a single income household, that's probably fact. And I cannot continue doing this. I need your guys' support. If this ministry has been a blessing to you, if anything that I have said tonight has resonated with you or is true, then I ask for your support. And I believe that we can make this the fundraiser that I showed. That's just a short-term solution. That's to get us up to this, through the spring. But we need people who are subscribing to Patreon account, and just be like, I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what, even if you don't agree with everything, that's fine. I don't even agree with myself some of the time. That's what it's like searching for the truth, right? You have to be, in order to search for the truth, you have to be willing to be wrong. If you're afraid of being wrong, then you're not going to discover the truth, because you have to be able to step out of the box and take some missteps, right? But if you believe in what we're doing here, I kindly ask for your support, please. And love you guys. I'll be turning off the camera. I'm going to be wired for a long time with the coffee I drink. And we'll be doing tour portions in this Friday. And I'll be giving a presentation also on chess in the Millennial Kingdom. Looking forward to doing that. And I'll see you guys around. Good night, everybody.